can only mean one thing.
Yeah.
And that is Tony Messenger, St. Louis Post-Dispatch columnist. Good morning, Tony Messenger.
Would you rather be the goose or the gander?
Depends on whose ox is getting gored. See what I did there?
Nice. Good work, McGraw.
Thank you. All right. So, Jeff Fisher, what are your thoughts? I mean, there's a whole bunch of Schadenfreude going on. I kind of feel bad that he doesn't get to break the record.
Well, I mean, understand, first of all, you're talking to a depressed Bronco fan who can't believe his team lost to the Titans this week. So, you know, I have to,
you
I
are
have
in
to
mourning.
get over that before
Yes.
I focus on another football team. But I have to say, as somebody who was never invested in the Rams, but wrote about and followed the stadium shenanigans very closely, I get the anger coming from not just Rams fans, but St. Louis Civic boosters who are not enjoying necessarily a man losing his job, but are enjoying the futility of a franchise that played St. Louis for a bunch of chumps and then kicked us while we were down on the way out. There was so much classless behavior by Rams owner Stan Kroenke and some of his executives on the way out of town that I get the futility that Rams fans and St. Louis Civic boosters are getting out of the Rams futility. It's I have to say I picked the wrong profession to be in a profession that pays as well as NFL football coaches, to be as historically an unsuccessful coach for such a long period of time as Jeff Fisher has been, to get a 2-year extension during that period of lack of success, and then be fired with that going away money. That's, you know, I mean, there's worse things in the world. Don't cry for Jeff Fisher. He's walking away with a lot of money.
So, Tony, how much of this do you think is the proverbial L.A. media going hard on Jeff Fisher and it being so toxic out there that he had to make a move, whereas if he were in insulated, nice, polite St. Louis media, he wouldn't have had the outcry and he probably could have held on to his job through the rest of the year?
It's hard to say. Would he have gotten a 2-year extension in St. Louis? You can't take away the stadium debacle from that debate right now. So it's hard to look into the crystal ball and say,
right,
well, what if the Rams were still here? Well, if the Rams were still here and they were building a new stadium, a whole lot of things might not have happened the way that they happened. But I mean, you look at the way that team has played, and just gotten destroyed in the last 2 or 3 weeks, and at some point, the NFL is a performance business. At some point, somebody has to pay the piper.
Right. Yeah. Well, performance business. That's why everyone's 8-8 and makes $8 billion. All right, Tony. While I have you, you told a story. You're into this backpack charity in this organization. Take a minute and talk about this, because this is a great story.
Yeah. So a lot of people probably read about or heard about the fire that took place on the bus that was taking kids home from Lafayette to the city. They were transfer students about a week ago. What they didn't know is that a lot of those kids lost their backpacks and their school supplies. And there is a new charity that got started up that readers of my column are familiar with. It's called the Lawrence Strawbridge Foundation. And it got started up after one of those transfer students, who was a junior at Lafayette, died he was killed in a stabbing, both he and his mother, in the city. And family and friends, both in the city and in Wildwood, got together and said, we have to find a way to remember Lawrence and remember his mom, Tyra Shannon. And they created this foundation that raises money, and it's brand new. They're still in the process of getting their 501c3 and all that. The paperwork's in with the IRS. But already, they just formed this year, already what they're doing is they're raising money to help bridge that gap between transfer students who, have to ride a bus or ride a cab or somehow, get from their homes in St. Louis to Lafayette High School and eventually other, West County and area high schools. And often they're far away from their family. They're far away from some of their closest friends. They don't necessarily come from means. They can't afford to do all the things that their students, classmates in West County are able to do in terms of school performances and camps and all that. And so this foundation is trying to raise money to help bridge that gap and to help connect our separated communities. And so they went into action as soon as that fire was reported, and went to work and got the kids new backpacks and new school supplies and made sure that they didn't miss a beat, and they had them by the next day. And it's just it's a heartwarming story that came out of a friendship between a kid who grew up in the city and a kid who grew up in West County and became best friends because they went to school in first grade. And their families have been friends ever since. And it's a tragedy that turned into something that I think is meaningful for the city.
Tony Messenger, St. Louis Post-Dispatch columnist, and you were with us every Tuesday and Thursday. Have a good week. Thanks.
You too. Thanks. Bye.
824, Big 550,